So, as my community post went down really well with this, today on Plastic Skulls, we're going to be looking at something a little bit different. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how to make barbed wire fences. Using this video, you should be able to come up with different variations and make things like gates for your war games. Before we get into it, I'd just like to give a shout out to a new website called Tabletop Star, which is designed to help wargamers find opponents for their favourite games. This is not a sponsorship and I'm not gaining financially in any way from this, it's just a bit of mutual promotion. I really like the idea and would love to see the website up and running, as I really think it would be a massive help to the community and for the hobby. As we all know, finding new players can be the most difficult part of the hobby. It's free and there's no advertising on the website, and of course this kind of website will only work if there's enough people using it. If you want to check it out, I'll leave a link in the description below. Now let's make some barbed wire fence terrain. Most of the materials and equipment required for this you'll most likely have already in your hobby drawer or in the garage. The only thing that you probably won't have is the stainless steel wire mesh, but this is relatively inexpensive and you can buy this online. It's usually advertised as a mesh to put over any gaps in your house or drainage to keep out rodents and things like that. You want to have a think about how many squares you've got per inch or centimetre if you want to try and get the scale right. This will depend on the style of fence that you want to try and recreate. In this video, I've used a mesh with roughly 15 squares per inch. You also may want to rotate the mesh 45 degrees when compared to that I've used in this video, as this will replicate one of the common mesh style fences shown here. To make these fences, you need some balsa wood, lollipop sticks, or kebab skewers, anything like that can be used as the fence posts. I've used some balsa wood that's 6.5mm by 3mm, but you can use whatever you have lying around that matches the style that you want to go for. You'll also need the mesh, some wire clippers, pliers, your hobby clippers, a junior hacksaw, or alternatively you probably could use a hobby knife or Stanley knife to cut the balsa wood. And if you want to paint the fence posts and give them some texture, you'll also need a wire brush and the paints you want to use. The wire brush is just to add some texture to give a wood grain effect. I have demonstrated on some lollipop sticks how to do this. The first thing you'll want to do is decide how high you want your fence to be, and then add a bit to this because you want the fence posts to dig into the base. Here I'm cutting the balsa wood, which I'm using as the fence posts, to 8cm. To add some wood grain texture to the balsa wood, I'm simply using the wire brush over each side. And then, surprise surprise, I'm using a brown to paint the wood. Here I'm using a brown spray. This is something I found in a DIY store on offer, but you can use any brown paint you've got lying around. It can be something relatively inexpensive. I'm then giving the wood a wash to really bring out that texture. And then finally dry brushing over with a lighter colour to really make the grain pop. Here I'm using the wire clippers to cut the mesh to the width and height that I want the fence to be. This can be a bit fiddly and awkward, but with a bit of patience and persistence, you'll easily get through it. You might want to use gloves while handling this wire, as it can get quite sharp. You may want to add more support posts depending on the width of your fence. Now you'll want to strip some wire out of the mesh, and this will be used to attach the fence post to the mesh. To do this, I simply thread the wire through the mesh and around the fence post, and then cross it over to allow me to grip it with the pliers. Twist these wires together until the wire connection is tight against the post. The excess can then be clipped off, leaving enough just to bend over so that you don't cut yourself, as it can be quite sharp. As you can see here, I've bent this right into the wood. I've done this at 4 points at each corner of the mesh. This is more than enough to hold it secure. Now you'll want to strip the longest bit of wire you can from the mesh, and you'll notice because the wire is crisscrossed through the mesh that there's some kinks. This reflects the light. This really helps trick the eye into thinking that there's actually some barb bits on this wire model. So now you'll want to use your hobby knife or something cylindrical to wrap the wire around. This will give it the barbed wire coil shape. When you're done, pull the wire off and you have your barbed wire coil. This can now be wound through the mesh. You'll probably want to wind it through at the second square down just because it's a bit stronger. Keep winding the wire through until it's completely covering the mesh. You may need to use more than one wire for this. Remember to tuck the ends of the wire into the mesh between the fence post and the mesh so that there's no sharp edges to catch your fingers on. To make the other variations shown here, you will need to join the balsa wood to make a frame. You can do this with glue. And that's it, that's the quick and simple way of making barbed wire fences. And using this method, hopefully you can see how you can make barbed wire gates and doors and things like that. If you've got any questions, please ask me in the comments. I'll be more than happy to clarify anything that I haven't made clear in this. So here are some images of the fences with another piece of terrain. This is a bit of a sneak preview into my next video where I'll be showing how to make bunker terrain out of everyday packaging. So thanks for watching guys, and remember, if anyone would like to support me on my Patreon, there's a link in the description. Finally, I'd like to say a big thank you to Trevor Robertson, who has recently become the first Patreon for the channel. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.